This is Cassandra Negley with Yahoo Sports here with the Golden Valkyries super team of Natalie Nakase and Ohemaa Nyanin. We wanted to chat with you guys about the expansion draft. You guys finally have a roster. You're about a week removed from it. So just how's it feeling now that you have the first big step finalized?
Yeah, I think I'll start. First, thank you for having us. How does it feel? I think it feels like our job is not done yet. I think the big thing for me as I took on this opportunity was hire a head coach and get through expansion draft. And I've done both of them, and I'm like, oh, wait, there's free agency and there's collegiate draft, and there's everything in between. There's a lot of hiring that needs to happen as well. So I don't think I have a positive or a negative feeling around it. I feel like there's still more to come and just being like thoughtful about all of it.
Yeah, I've thought about this because we kind of been asked a lot about the process. But when I woke up this morning, I was like, wow, I'm just feeling grateful. Because me and Ohema and Jess, we did a lot of interviews in the past couple days, and like when we bounce stuff off of each other, like these two women like really motivate me just because they are so great at their craft, but they care so much. And so we'll talk about, how we've had passionate conversations is Ohema's go-to is the passionate conversations, but we had honest collaborations. And so I just think that's kind of been key to like the results that you see right now, the 11 players, like they really mean a lot to us just because we put so much hard work and like I said, honest collaborations and passionate conversations.
How did you approach that time before you had the official protected list? And then how did you approach it after, once you knew who you could definitely take if you wanted and definitely not?
Yeah, so prior to we had uh a number of meetings to have our own mock drafts, right? So we did everybody had their own Excel spreadsheets and they made their selections, and then we came together and we said, okay, if it was tomorrow and we had to turn in the list tomorrow, who are these athletes? And sometimes we were post heavy, sometimes we were guard heavy. And then moving from there, once we got the list, it was, I would say, we were prepared. We were prepared to have the tough conversations because a month leading into getting the list, we had had a lot of tough conversations as to, okay, if this player from this team was unprotected, why would we want them? Yes or no? If it was yes, probably it's two out of the three of us that said yes, and the one that said no was probably me. So I'm like, okay, so why? After getting the list, we had had all the tough conversations, I want to say, and now we it was easier to collaborate afterwards.
This came up a lot in the playoffs, talking to the New York Liberty about building chemistry. And I know, like Natalie, for you as well, like the Aces are always talking about that building of chemistry. And one thing we heard a lot was you have to have honest conversations, but sometimes it can take time. You guys have both mentioned that, but your time together hasn't been that long. How did you maybe speed through that process so that you could have these honest conversations to build a team?
I think for me, I'm not going to speak for Natalie, but for me personally, the interview process that I had with the head coach candidates was part of me being able to discern if I would have a partner in problem solving. And I think that's what I held true. Um, there's a lot of unknown. And so, whether it's adversity, whether it's a high, whether it's a low, being able to have open and honest conversations that lead to a solution, right? Was at the forefront of my mind. And I think throughout the interview process, I asked a lot of questions around that to all the candidates. And Coach Natalie was the one that I felt the most comfortable to build with because we just had like pretty much like an effortless way of communicating.
Yeah, for me, it was like I'm a vibe person, like an energy feeler. So sometimes it's just when you're sitting, across from someone. So I sat across from Ohema, in our interview process. Like you feel good energy. And those are the type of people that you want to work with because we're going to be working together every single day. And so when you wake up and, you get into the office or you go into a locker room, like you want to feel that. And that's big for me. So I think that's a huge thing that we think about as we're hiring, into the hiring process and even players. Like the players, as I watch them on the court and I watch them through film, but more importantly, when I watch them play against us, like I'm feeling their energy. I'm looking over in their warm-ups, like what are they doing over there? Are they warming up with intent? Do they have a positive attitude? Are they smiling? Are they enjoying themselves? And so for me, that's an important is the feel.
Oh, Hema, you had mentioned earlier that there's so much more to do. Building an expansion team is such a blank slate for both of you. Like so many different ways to build a roster. You can focus more on the expansion draft. You can focus more on the collegiate draft. Free agency is going to be huge this year and in 2026. There's a new CBA coming, like so much uncertainty. How do you balance all of those aspects when you're going into building a roster from scratch?
Yeah, you have to have a entrepreneurial mindset. I think, uh, like I've mentioned before, just to be open to kind of all the possibilities, and being able to problem solve, I think is the right approach. Nothing is for certain. I think, coming from a team like the Liberty, who did a hard reset, rebuild, right, throughout my tenure there. There were still things that existed prior, right? That you could glean from, that you could learn from. And we are building what we are going to learn from, if that makes sense. And so just being able to um, create, learn, assess, adapt at a very high pace, and do it with the utmost grace for each other. I think, uh, and I know Natalie and I are our harshest critics. Like we're our own harshest critics. And so because we know that, we're able to kind of approach each other with care when it comes to the hard decision making that will be kind of like our entire tenure with this organization.
I agree.
You had mentioned, being with the Liberty, and Jonathan Cole was really open about having those names on the whiteboard, that this was the goal. I know neither of you want to give away Golden State secrets, but is there, a whiteboard in your office where you have it listed kind of what your big goals are in terms of we want these free agents, that would be plan A, and we do this in the draft, and we, trade for these players in free agency.
Yeah, we have athletes that we're interested in, and we are, I think, being just a lot more thoughtful about which athletes we want to bring in, and why, because our culture is going to be representative of them, and we want them to be active participants. And so, when we have the opportunities to have conversations with these athletes, that may change our minds or that may keep what we think to be true. The on-court talent and the grind to want to win every game um, is very important. And who you are and what you represent and what you would like to represent, like how can we be collaborators off the court as well, is equally important.
Natalie, when it comes to the chemistry of this roster, that's something that a lot of people say, a lot of players say is often player led. But this team is a group, at least if we're talking about this roster right now, that none of them played together last year. How do you plan to invigorate like the team chemistry starting now with such a different situation than, just taking over as head coach of an existing team?
Yeah, I mean, we could say that for every time players just change teams overseas. I mean, just in terms of like the Americans, like everyone's going to join a new team at some point. Yes, it is a little bit different because all of them are coming together. But I think time is the best thing that you can give someone. So whether it's over, FaceTime or just a phone call or a text, I think all those things, especially because nowadays we do that every single day. So why not start? Why not start now? So yeah, I think it's just about giving each other time. And then again, we chose players with high character. And so high character means, you have a genuine heart, you have a genuine care factor. And I think once you bring that all together, it's just going to come together quicker. That's just my gut feeling.
Is that
Yeah.
something that you've started now?
Well, yeah, we've definitely started communicating right away as early as possible. Yeah.
How important is it? You won two championships with the Aces. That group has always talked about just how close that they were and like how important the locker room was to them. How important is it figuring out that chemistry, sooner rather than later, especially knowing that there's a championship within 5 years comment kind of hanging over the Valkyries right now?
Yeah, so it's not like a time limit, right? Like, yeah, I'm talking about giving time, but it's not like, okay, in 1 week we're gonna be at this level, and then in two, like, no. It's all about, again, like the genuineness of people. And I think I always go back to like Becky Hammond being our head coach. Like she came in with such a big heart and such a big like, hey, I'm authentically me, I'm silly, I'm crazy. And that vibe just allowed people to be their crazy, authentic self. Like playing loud music, dancing, like within the first week. We played a lot of games during training camp. And so I think that just let everyone's true self and like their funny characters just come out. So that's what it is. It's not, and we did it quickly. So I wouldn't say there's a time frame on it. I just think it's just about, the leaders, Ohemaa, Jess, and myself, like trying to just, make everyone feel as comfortable as they can.
Is there anyone in particular for you as the head coach that you're really excited you were able to get in this draft?
All of them. All of them right now. I mean, the more that I've watched like film over and over again with, even going back to a couple years, like they're all great. And you start to dig, right? Social media is so great that you can find people's personalities and listening to their videos. I mean, you could feel them through the clip. I don't know if you do, but I do. Like I can feel their sense of like gratefulness and humility and excitement. And so, yeah, we just constantly try to just engage and collaborate. Our word is collaborate as much as we can.
Are you talking about the clips that they posted excited that they're joining the team, or did you go through and like watch clips of them previously in as part of your like game film?
Oh, both. Yeah,
Yeah.
both, everything. Like I try to, because then you want to really try to get to know, them as best as possible. So when you prepare for that moment to communicate to them, you're kind of getting a feel of who they are. So then you can kind of, relate a little bit early so they feel as comfortable as possible. So yeah, both.
Did either of you make the calls to them telling them that they were joining the team, or how did that run down?
Yeah, we made it together. I think part
Okay.
of what we wanted to do, and uh, I think that there's a couple of us that feel like we should have like videoed it, just so we could like have it for ourselves. And there's others that think like, well, that was like our moment. But the timeline we're keeping to ourselves, but they knew prior to their names being read on ESPN that we had selected them. And that was like a really special and emotional moment for each of them for a whole host of different reasons, right? And so I think that that gave me more specifically confidence going into the selections and kind of hearing everybody else, um, because I was really focused on making sure that the athletes didn't feel the negative side of being selected, because to be selected, you were unprotected. And so if you had the mindset that you were going back to team A, um, then you get a call randomly from myself, Coach Natalie, and Vanya, our VP of Ops, on a group FaceTime or WhatsApp, it means very much so that you were not protected. And oh, by the way, we have your rights, or your contract. And just wanted to put their minds at ease that we know that this is a moment that they have to think through. They have to be thoughtful about. And so after that initial conversation, we haven't had many conversations after. I think specifically, I just want them to like lean into it, do a little bit more research on us. And then when we come back to the table to just talk about next steps, we've all kind of gone through all the different emotions and are able to talk about what's best, what's mutually best for us.
I know you've talked about it's like a negative and a positive for these players. Obviously, trades happen all the time, but this is a unique situation where you talk with the player, there's a negative and a positive, and then as you said, like there's a time period, and then there's a celebration aired on ESPN where we all know. For each of you, what was that time period like in terms of emotion? Like you know what your roster is, you can't really tell anyone else. You've heard maybe some excitement in players' voices. Like you're sitting on the stage, you can't really spill what's going on. What is that like?
Well, because we are, like you said, we already knew, me, Ohemaa, and Vanya, so we kind of did like a celebration lunch, like just you know, just to take a deep breath of like all the hard work, that kind of went behind closed doors. And again, Ohemaa and Vanya and the scouts, they did the majority of the work. I watched the film, they organized everything, the thoughtfulness of everything, they did it. I kind of watched the film, I did kind of the coach's perspective. So for me, it was like we celebrated with a good lunch. We're out in the sun, we're just enjoying ourselves. And then as we approached to the draft, we got all decked out, we dressed up and everything, so it was really exciting. But for us, I couldn't believe how many fans were there. Like I couldn't believe just the response, like of everything. So for me, I was just, very impressed with the way, Golden State Valkyries set everything up and just were super intentional, as much as they could show, like just all the violet, just it was amazing setup. And then here comes E40, here comes Michelle Wie, here comes Baron Davis, and I'm just like, what is going on? So yeah, just I guess to answer it, just overwhelmed, I guess would be a good answer. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, similarly, just emotional. I think that that was the word of the day, and I'm going to stick with it. The behind the scenes vulnerability of like putting something together and not necessarily knowing if all the stakeholders are going to be happy about it. I was proud at the effort and collaboration that our team put together. I was proud that our ownership group like collaborated with us in a way that didn't seem like anything other than just pure joy to work with them, and I don't think I took that part for granted. I think like I didn't know that I could work with such a cool is like a very pedestrian word, but like these individuals that we work with, that I report to, more specifically, that we all report to, are the humans that we hope that our athletes are as well. They're extremely passionate about everything and extremely thoughtful about everything. So to sum it up, emotional and proud.
In terms of the roster with all the players you got, there's a lot of salary cap room, just given the situation of all of their rights where they sit. How purposeful was that, or is it a happy byproduct of getting the players you each wanted to get?
I think a combination. I think the complexity of an expansion draft was kind of illustrated as we got closer to the expansion draft, right? But I think for the future teams that are going to have to go through it, there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind in trying to have the most complete roster. Eurobasket happens in June, and depending on how many years of service you have, you either can leave 10 days or 14 days prior to the start of that tournament. And that's the entire month of June. That's 11 games for us. And Coach Natalie, was asking all the great questions like, so if all of their teams qualify in February, what does that look like for us? And how are we planning? And we welcomed those questions because, she's thinking about how she's going to put her team together and wanting the continuity. And I'm also thinking about it from the kind of macro level of, well, how are these athletes going to best serve this organization, and what does that all look like? So um, I I think that both, if that makes sense. Like the happy byproduct, I think means sometimes can be like pretty aloof to say like, oh, like, yeah, it just happened. But we were very intentional about the athletes because their talent, which Coach Natalie can speak more to, jumps off the screen. And to be able to even have the inaugural opportunity to welcome them into this organization, whether they make it to training camp or not, we just wanted the opportunity to be able to connect with them and continue to kind of like elevate them in their respective roles.
You have a season opener coming up in May. It is finally time. You have a roster, free agency coming up to finalize that roster. What do you expect from fans moving forward? How the arena, the energy will be in the season opener, given how many people were just at the draft party, how many people have already, expressed so much excitement about being there, and the Golden State Warriors are all over the place in your gear.
Yeah, I mean, I can start. The Bay Area has been extremely hungry for a W team for a really long time. There's a lot of history around it. Mr. Joe Lacob had a ABL team, the San Jose Lasers, and that folded when the WNBA started. And so he's been in this game for a really long time. To have close to 21,000 season ticket deposit holders, people who are standing in line to buy tickets, to prior to even announcing a team name, there were thousands of season ticket deposits. Prior to hiring Coach Natalie, the number just kept growing. And so for me, this kind of blind faith that we will be successful is what continues to drive me on a daily basis to make sure that we have the most competitive group of athletes to show them that all of their joy and their like energy is well worth it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be electric. I mean, we've been to a couple Warrior games already, and like once, that ball goes up, I mean, the crowd is just insane. And so I can't wait for that just personally. And then just funny story, last week when I was walking, in the streets of San Francisco, I was wearing my Valkyrie hoodie and I was gonna get coffee, and the guy comes by and he's like, "Hey," he goes, "You're the coach of the Valkyries." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me," and I'm like, "Let me keep walking," because I'm like, these are the streets of San Francisco. Let me keep walking. And he was just like, "Hey," he's like, "By the way," he's like, "You got a game today?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so, right?" Because like the first game, like you said, is in May. But like I really thought because of his energy, I'm like, "Oh crap." I'm like, "Do I have a game today?" Like because he was so energetic. And I was like, as we're going through this process, we keep saying like we haven't slept that much, and like he really got me. And so but anyways, like so I can't imagine if a guy down the street is screaming, "Do we have a game today?" Can you only imagine what 21,000 fans are going to be like?
I love that story. It's been an incredible like year and a half of people suddenly doing things like that. I'm sure like you were pretty used to it in Las Vegas, but for a new franchise to have that, that's incredible. Is there anything else either of you want to add or make sure we know before we let you go? And thank you for your time.
Go Valkyries. I was, like, no, I think for us, like, the one thing that I want all of our fans to know is this is a journey, and we're really grateful and appreciative of them being a part of it. And we welcome kind of like all of their feedback and just like all of the joy. And kind of intense energy that they've given us right now is propelling us through, the sleep deprivation to want to continue to put the most competitive group of athletes on the floor.
Yeah, same. I'm just, appreciative of all the fans and kind of really want to embrace all the fans all throughout, the league. So I can't wait to just play in all the other arenas and maybe we'll see some Valkyrie, hoodies and fans in other arenas. I think that'd be sick.
Well, thank you both for joining us. I know you're very busy. I hope you get sleep soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.